Let's pray, honorable members. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umeteua nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu, twakusihi ututazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri hii yetu. Twakuomba uturehemishe, ututeremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi hii yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amina.
How many more? Nimekuja kama representing 10.
Members, the whips need to do their job. So I order the quorum bell to go for 10 minutes.
So we need 17 more. Before the next order.
Okay. Other members? I think we are good to go. Let's proceed. Honorable members, we are starting. So the members coming in, come in quietly.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements. Order number 8, report of the Committee of the Whole House on the Business Laws Amendment, number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 50 of 2020.
Other members, I go on to put the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it, and I call upon the mover to move the bill for third reading.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Business Laws Amendment, number 2 Bill, the National Assembly Bill number 50 of 2020, be now read at that time. And Madam Speaker, as I move, I would like to record the appreciation, my appreciation, and to the members of the House and the committees for the speedy speed with which we have prosecuted this bill, which will basically give ease the business environment and help all those who would want to come and invest in Kenya realize Kenya is serious on improving the business environment. I wish to move and request the Honorable Kaluma to second.
Honorable Kaluma? Seconded.
Yes, I thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I second.
That's in order. Any indication of any comments?
Proposals. You've not proposed. You've not proposed. You proposed. It's not proposed.
Yes, that is true. Okay, honorable members, I go on to propose the question, which is that the Business Laws Amendment number 2, Bill, National Assembly Bill number 50 of 2020, be now read a third time. Should I go on to put the question? Yes. I go on to put the question, and having confirmed that we have the requisite quorum, I put the question, which is that the Business Laws Amendment Bill number 2, Bill, National Assembly Bill number 50 of 2020, be now read a third time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Let's go to the next order.
A bill for an act of parliament to make amendments to various statutes to facilitate the ease of doing business in Kenya and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 9, motion consideration of the value-added tax amendment regulations 2020.
The Chair, Committee on Delegated Legislation. Is that the Chair or Vice Chair?
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the value-added tax amendments regulations 2020, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 16th, 2021, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 6 and 67 of the Value-Added Tax Act 2013, approves that the Value-Added Tax Amendment Regulations 2020, published as legal notice number 188 of 2020, in exercise, Madam Speaker, of the powers conferred by Section 67 of the Value-Added Tax 2013, the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury and Planning published in Kenya Gazette the Value-Added Tax Amendment Regulations 2020 via legal notice number 188 of 2020 on 25th September 2020. The regulations were submitted to the Clerk of the National Assembly. The Regulation 6 to delete Regulation 9 of the Value-Added Tax Regulations 2017. Regulation 9 stipulates the requirements of issuing a tax invoice when making taxable supplies. It, however, did not mandate the VAT registered persons to generate a tax invoice by use of an electronic tax. This created a challenge in the enforcement of the compliance in the use of electronic tax registers, especially following the repeal of the Value-Added Tax Electronic Registers Regulations 204 in 2017. Regulation 9 requires that a registered person who makes a taxable supply shall, at tax invoice at the time, shall supply tax invoice at the time of supply, furnish the purchaser with a tax invoice containing the ones of the tax, the name, address, and PIN of the supplier, the name, address, and PIN, even of the receipt, the date which the tax invoice is issued, and the date which the supplier was made. Madam Speaker, Regulation 9.2 had further provided for an additional optional document, an electronic generated physical receipt as a simplified tax invoice for cash sales made from retail premises to be provided by a registered person, containing the names, address, the PIN, the serial number of the receipt, the date and time of issue of the receipt. Madam Speaker, the committee examined the Value-Added Tax Amendment Regulations 2020 against the Constitution, the interpretation of the General Provisions Act, Cap 2, the Value-Added Tax 2013, and the Statutory Instruments Act number 23 of 2013. The scrutiny was undertaken following the tabling of the regulations before the House on 15 October 2020 and subsequently referred to the Committee on Delegated Legislation. Madam Speaker, conferring with in accordance with Section 16 of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013, the committee had a meeting with the Regulating Making Authority on 1st February 2021. That is the Cabinet Secretary responsible for the National Treasury and Planning. In observations, Madam Speaker, having examined the Value-Added Tax Amendment Regulation 2020 against the Constitution, the interpretations and General Provisions Act, Cap 2, the Value-Added Tax Act 2013, and the Statutory Instruments Act of 2013, the committee observed that 1, the regulations were published in the Gazette on 25th September 2020. They were submitted to the Clerk of the National Assembly on the 9th October 2020 and laid on the table of the House on 15th October 2020, being within the requisite statutory timelines under Section 11 of the Statutory Instruments Act. Article 10 and 118 of the Constitution and Section 5 of the Statutory Instruments Act require that the regulation-making authority conducts public participation and sufficient consultation with the stakeholders and persons likely to be affected by the regulations. Madam Speaker, we observe that the regulation-making authority demonstrated that public participation was adequately undertaken by submitting evidence of stakeholder forums held in the development of the regulations. Madam Speaker, the regulations do not require a regulatory impact statement within the meaning of Section 6, 7, and 8 of the Statutory Instrument Act. They are not likely to impose significant costs on the community and will only affect persons registered under Section 34 of the Value Added Tax, number 35 of 2013. Madam Speaker, we recommend that pursuant to Standing Order 210-4, and having examined the Value Added Tax Amendments Regulations 2020, Legal Notice number 188 of 2020, in line with the Constitution, the Interpretations and General Provisions Act, Cap 2, the Value Added Tax 2013, and the Statutory Instruments Act number 23 of 2013, the committee recommends that the House approves the said legal notice in accordance with Section 6.2 of the Value Added Tax Act 2013. Honourable Speaker, I beg to move and request that Honourable Mulugara, a member of the committee, to second the report. Thank you.
Honourable Mulugara.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move to second the adoption of the report and the recommendation by the committee for reasons that we are now dealing with electronic tax, iTax, and it is vitally important that we are able to generate a tax invoice straight away without having to do it manually. The electronic way of paying taxes is a way of easing business in the country so that we do not have to all the time have to generate manual tax invoices, but this can be done electronically. That efficiency goes into the core of business practice in the country, where we are required to ensure that even our taxes are paid timeously, and those are the taxes that we will use to develop the country in all ways. We have looked at the regulations which conform to our Constitution and to the Parent Act, and therefore, this is the reason why the committee, having considered all aspects of the regulations, recommends an approval. With those remarks, I do second.
Order, members. Order, honorable members. Who is the member facing facing away from the speaker and not listening? Honorable members, I propose the question, which is that this House adopts a report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Value Added Tax Amendment Regulations 2020, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 16, 2021, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 6 and 67 of the Value Added Tax Act 2013, approves the Value Added Tax Amendment Regulations 2020, published as Legal Notice number 188 of 2020. What do you mean? But I have a list of requests here, unless this is misleading. Members, isn't that are these not requests to debate? Honorable Sankok, I hear you shouting, put the question, and your name is number 1. I put you to number 5. Honorable Mbui, are you on this one? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the report on of the Delegated Legislation Committee, and wish to point out that it is not the responsibility of the committee to deal with the merits or demerits of regulations that come to this House, but really to just look at the legality of the instruments guided by the Statutory Instruments Act. And so, Madam Speaker, what we really look at in that committee is a timely laying of the instruments in the House, whether they conform to the Statutory Instruments Act in terms of regulatory impact assessment, whether there is enough public participation, whether the Constitution of Kenya is respected. So basically, those are the things that we deal with. And Madam Speaker, I can say that the VAT amendment regulations did actually pass the test of time. But Madam Speaker, having said that, I would like to also say that there is also benefits in it, because as my Vice Chair and the colleague has said, that we are moving into a digital times. And therefore, even our collection of VAT has also to move with the times. And so this business of people filling pieces of paper and waiting for months to make claims is going to be a thing of the past when this is passed, because at the point of transaction, this information is digitally contained, and all the information of buyers and sellers is accessible at online. So that means then, therefore, it becomes easier going into the future for people to make their claims. So, Madam Speaker, I support the approval of these regulations. Thank you.
Honorable Nyasuna.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this VAT value-added tax amendment regulations of 2020. From where we come from the Finance Committee, it is important that tax collection systems, in order to optimize revenue, are as simple as possible. So, Honorable Speaker, you remember, you and I, when we were in this Parliament last term, we used to pick very bulky documents from the entrance there. But today, we are paperless. We did not imagine that we could achieve that, but we are. So as we progress, if you continue to require people to work with bulky documents, you're likely to see higher default rates compared to if we have an electronic system. So the fact that the regulations omitted allowing VAT, electronic tax registers to be used by VAT registered persons is a good correction. So I think what we are doing here is just making a small correction to the regulations, Honorable Speaker, and I really, from where I sit, do support and encourage that we move to be digital as much as possible, not just in VAT, but we commend KRA because a lot of the systems are now digital. We make our tax returns now digitally, rather than filling in the papers that we used to do. So, Honorable Speaker, with those few remarks, I support.
Honorable Nyanze.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand to support the deliberations of the committee. This is a time of technology, where technology is really improving on a very high speed. So it's good to keep on making amendments, especially on our laws, so that we can embrace the new technology and the new world in our deliberations. So, Madam Speaker, I support.
Honorable Russell.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the issue of tax is very important. It is not anything we must take lightly as representatives of the people in this House. If a particular form of tax collection is adopted, it must apply across the board. That do we have that infrastructure across this country? The idea of having a regulation is for the purpose of uniformity, that Kenyans know these are the regulations along which a particular tax system apply. But what we also must not lose the sight of, it is this idea of saying if it can apply in Nairobi or in Mombasa or Kisumu or Eldoret, then it can apply across the country to Mandera Marsabit, and Lodwar. What I think the Honorable Committee should do, whereas they have tabled this, they are in agreement, and we believe in their wisdom and their deliberation. But what is really important for me sitting in this House, that it must be a system that will be able to support itself in terms of tax collection across the country, that where there is no available infrastructure, it must be put in place to make sure that those in that tax bracket should be able to pay their tax. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Shabir.
Madam Chair, as my colleagues, Madam Speaker, I beg your pardon. Madam Speaker, as my colleagues have suggested, the issue of delegation legislation is to check that everything is in order and that the content is there and that the timelines have been maintained. They're not here to look at, that was responsibility of the Finance Committee, to look at the aspects of particular taxation, what it does, how it does. I stand to support the proposal, the motion, because it is accepting and looking at digitization of the VAT Act. Madam Speaker, taxation must be that which is effective, a robust system that is effective, efficient, and is reliable and timely. The VAT system had become very, very cumbersome, very bureaucratic. The VAT refunds were taking years and years to do, and people had started taking advantage of the system. Corruption had set in because of inefficiency. Files were disappearing. I think by doing this digitally, the bureaucracy is going to be put back. It's going to be efficient. The taxpayer is going to understand what's happening. He can check his digital statement. There will be a track of what you're doing, how much you've spent, how much VAT you've collected for the state, and how much you've paid. I support wholeheartedly the issue of digitalization and efficiency of this. Tax, like death, is inevitable. The best thing to do is have a robust system and a system of tax that people can accept as being fair and transparent. And I think this is the way we are going. And I do look forward to the Kenya Revenue Authority finishing off all the VAT claims that have taken nearly 5 years, and they have also been subject to so much corruption. Madam Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Honorable Sanko, you changed your mind?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to add my voice on this very important report from the Committee on Delegated Legislation. And I must say that they have done us proud, Honorable Speaker, especially us from the Jubilee side, Honorable Speaker, because when we went around this country in 2013 and 2017, the most important thing that we promised that our government will be a digital government. And when we have digitalization of even tax payment, Honorable Speaker, is one way of achieving our manifesto as Jubilee. Therefore, I really do thank Honorable Speaker. And this will assist, and Kenyans will now confirm that even though our manifesto is not 100%, but is towards 90%, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this digitalization of tax, Honorable Speaker, will first of all reduce the red tape, kind of cumbersome payment of taxes that we have witnessed in our country. where sometimes you find even files disappearing and people being double taxed, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, taxes are very important because they run our economy. And when you think of 30 million Kenyans paying taxes, Honorable Speaker, because our population have been increasing. If our population increase, Honorable Speaker, and we pay taxes and they are registered in those analog forms, Honorable Speaker, you can imagine 30 million forms from 30 million Kenyans being piled in Times Towers, Honorable Speaker. You'll find that they will be using more space, Honorable Speaker, to rent more space just to put our files. But now with this digitalization, Honorable Speaker, it will make it easier. And even us, we can fill our tax returns. KRA can collect their returns very efficiently, and we can pay our taxes at the comfort of our bedrooms, Honorable Speaker, without necessarily these expenses of traveling to and fro to KRA offices to fill these forms. So, Honorable Speaker, I do support, and I really do employ upon the Finance Committee to make sure that they follow up so that all these policies that we are putting in place in this House are fully implemented. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I do support.
Honorable Munyasi, John.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the proposed regulations. I think the idea is in the right direction, definitely. And KRA, as our fiscal agent, I think will be better in a much better position when they have digitized such an important tax like VAT. My hope and expectation is that, broadly speaking, and entirely for the KRA, that their systems will go in the same direction, that their systems will be digitized, that they can be accessible by all the taxpayers and others, all the taxpayers want to see what's happening, that they will make them more responsive to the client needs, where refunds are involved, because they'll be able to see it at a glance, that their numbers and those of Treasury will now continue to agree increasingly as to the estimates of revenue, and that it's also, there will be figures that are verifiable by other interested parties. So this is a great step in the right direction. Then I think taxpayers and citizens as a whole can then get back to the task of saying, are we paying too much? It's not just that it's being collected, because they have to collect what the law, what we here have passed. But you've seen the outcry in the recent past on the quantum of taxes that have come forth. People are getting more conscious of it, which also means that the executive, that the country as a whole, the executive, through the executive, in putting our budgets together, that we think about affordability of payment for those. Everything you want to do, all the good roads, all the new buildings and all the other things that are happening have to be paid for. And now these taxes, including VAT, are getting into homesteads in the villages. They can see the difference in their cost of living necessitated by taxes that they have to pay on the various services that they have, the goods they purchase and the services they purchase. Maybe the city dwellers with the high incomes, it's just a story they will talk about. You talk about how painful it is to fill your gas guzzler that is 90 liters and so on. But the paraffin user in the village is worrying about how to make ends meet following the increased taxes that will have come on the goods that they use and the services that are provided, including matatu services, for example, and piki-piki, boda-boda services in the villages. These are real questions. We digitize, yes. It's more efficient, yes. We can collect all that we're due to collect. But I want to go one step back and say, did we have to get to this level of taxation to achieve the same benefit? I think the pride in bigger and bigger budgets has to be tempered with the realistic assessment of whether, in fact, those budgets are indeed needed as of the time that we are implementing them or not. And as you can see, frequently we fall short of our revenue collection. One may be inefficiencies in which digitization will minimize and improve. But the other is simply that what we think to be realistic collection is matched against an expenditure level that we really cannot afford. And so we have these shortfalls and amendments that come through our supplementary budgets, sometimes several times towards the end of the year, and that is because somehow one of our projections on expenditure and revenue did not fall in line. So I think it's really time that we, as members of parliament, the other day I ran into a colleague and I was saying, you saw this uproar on taxation for the first time. Kenya has, I think of a tax rebellion as it were. And we passed, he said, no, he wasn't there when it was passed. Now, who knows that in the village, that individual member wasn't there? I think it's time that now we begin to focus on the quality of the expenditure package that's coming through our budgets, and to say, at the end of the day, it's Wanjiku that's going to pay us well. It's not the billionaire. The billionaire does pay. It makes no difference. They'll probably find a way of raising additional money. But the households, the low-income people, this can be devastating. So I applaud the digitization to make sure we minimize any wastage, but let us now begin to focus also on the quality of expenditure and the impact of such tax obligations on low-income households. With those few remarks, I support. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kinangop, Honourable Kwenya.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to support the report by the delegated committee. And on the onset, I want to support and say that success of any government or any economy depends on its fiscal policy. And we have two kind of taxes that are very important in this country that yield so much in terms of our revenue, that is the pay and value-added tax. And regulations that are being brought to this house are really very important because you see, value-added tax is a tax that is collected at source by the government, and especially now the issue of withholding, whereby we really have to have a tamper-proof or foolproof form of tax collection. The issue of having all the details of the supplier and the buyer captured electronically is very important. This is going to really deal a blow to the tax cheats that we have in this country. We also would wish to look into the issues and to the efficiency of KRA, Kenya Revenue Authority, because at times the withholders of tax hold tax and do not submit in time, and therefore business people suffer because they will always get notices from KRA asking them to declare monies that have been withheld by the supplier, by the withholders, yet they've done their thing. And therefore it is incumbent upon KRA just to make sure that they rein on the tax withholders so that the monies are submitted in time. Finally, Madam Speaker, on the issue of tax refunds, the VAT, whereby you find that as a business person you've paid more to Kenya Revenue Authority and you demand the same to be refunded to you, whereby that money doesn't come in time. I have had instances where I have seen the president.
Honourable Kishimu, are you on intervention?
After he is done.
What do you mean?
Thank you. No.
You're
Madam Speaker.
You're out of order. I mean, if you're on intervention, if you're not on intervention,
he's not.
Then remove. Don't signal me on intervention, if that's not your intention. Because what are you preempting to intervene on? If not, what is going on?
So,
you're back again.
Yeah.
Do you have something to say about Honourable Kwenya's contribution? No. If not, please sit down and then you can wait for your
That's
time.
why I have nothing to say.
Go on, Honourable Kwenya.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hope by the time I'm done, he'll be able to get to know what it is that he wanted with the intervention. But then, Madam Speaker, I just wanted to say that we have seen situations where the President gives directive that all the monies that are withheld, that needs to be refunded to taxpayers, be refunded and monies are provided for. But then it doesn't happen. Like one of the mitigation measures that was taken by the President in terms of making sure that business people are refunded their money, and did not happen. Therefore, I would pray and maybe ask our finance committee to follow through and see that such directives are implemented, because we are talking of making this country a business hub and making it easy for our business people to do business. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I support the report.
Honorable Gishimu, I'm not going to give you a shortcut because I have now to give to someone on this end. So if you're pressing the intervention button for me to let you speak, then that's a shortcut. Yes, Honorable Gishimu.
Madam Speaker, I think now I'm rightly placed to stand and raise a point of order under Standing Order 95, that listening, that the mover be called to reply, because listening to whatever is being canvassed here, I hear a chorus in support. And there are two other bills related to this one on tax. So other interested voices will also be heard in the two other motions that are coming, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Gishimu, actually, I was right. I thought you knew the procedure. So actually, you're actually in order. But I'll not make that decision. I'll put the question on it so that we know how to go about it. Honorable members, following the motion by Honorable Gishimu, I go on to put the question, which is that the mover be called upon to reply. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of our contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Therefore, I proceed to call upon the mover to reply.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to record my position to the committee members and to this House, especially for having supported unanimously the Value Added Tax Amendments Regulations 2020. That is legal notice number 188 of 2020. Madam Speaker, I've heard the comments from the members, those that have been canvassed, especially about the digitalization of the VAT. Members would wish to get timely refunds. Members have stated that these will catch up with the tax cheats. And the previous regime, Madam Speaker, was very tidy, cumbersome, and archaic. So once we digitalize, Madam Speaker, we are moving in sync with the rest of the world. With those few remarks, I move to reply. Thank you.
Honorable members, I'm going to defer the putting of the question until when we have the motion back on the order paper. And we therefore move to the next order.
Order number 10, motion, consideration of the value-added tax, electronic tax invoice regulations 2020.
I understand the Honorable Shamala is on to move the motion. Yes,
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the value-added tax, electronic tax invoice regulations 2020, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 16, 2021, and pursuant to the provisions of Sections 6 and 67 of the Value-Added Tax Act 2013, approves the Value-Added Tax Electronic Tax Invoice Regulations 2020, published as legal notice number 189 of 2020. The Committee on Delegated Legislation is established pursuant to Standing Order number 210 and is mandated to consider statutory instruments submitted to Parliament for consideration. The committee is expected to consider in respect of any statutory instruments whether it is in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution, the Act pursuant to which it is made, or other relevant written laws. In exercise of the powers conferred by Section 67 of the Value-Added Act 2013, the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Planning made the Value-Added Tax Electronic Tax Invoice Regulations 2020 vide legal notice number 189 of 2020 on 25th December 2020. The regulations were submitted to the Clerk of the National Assembly on 9th October 2020 and tabled before the House on 15th October 2020. The regulations provide a legal framework to govern the use of electronic tax registers in accordance with Section 43(4) of the Value Added Tax Act, in order to provide for the interpretation, scope of application, use of the register tax invoices, transmissions and thereof, and for the use and creates offenses for non-compliance and contravention. The regulations also seek to enforce the VAT compliance and minimize fraud and tax evasion by obligating a registered user under Section 34 of the VAT Act to generate a tax invoice. The use of electronic tax registers by registered persons will provide for standardization and uniformity of tax invoices generated and enhance effective compliance and enforcement measures by minimizing VAT fraud. The use of electronic tax registers will also ensure an enhanced administration of VAT. What is the legal basis for the scrutiny, Madam Speaker? The committee examined the value-added tax electronic regulations against the Constitution, the Interpretations and General Provisions Act, the Value-Added Act 2013, and the Statutory Instruments Act number 23 of 2013. The scrutiny was undertaken following the tabling of the regulations before the House on the 15th of October 2020 and subsequent referral to the Committee on Delegated Legislation. In accordance with Section 16 of the Statutory Instruments Act, the committee held a meeting with the regulation-making authority on 1st February 2021 in Mombasa. The delegation was led by the Honorable Ambassador Ukar Yatani, the Cabinet Secretary responsible for National Treasury and Planning. The Cabinet Secretary informed the committee that the Value-Added Tax Regulations 2020 intends to provide for the standardization and uniformity of tax invoices generated. This will enhance effective compliance and enforcement measures, which will result in an increase in revenue by minimizing VAT fraud. The regulations will support the ease of doing business in this country, as it will facilitate the simplification of VAT tax returns and also facilitate faster processing of VAT refund claims. Businesses with existing electronic tax registers will be facilitated to update the register to comply with the system at no cost. Having examined the value-added electronic tax invoice regulations against the Constitution, the Interpretations and General Provisions Act, the Value-Added Tax Act of 2013, and the statutory instruments, the committee observed that the value-added tax regulations were published in the Gazette Notice on 10th September 2020, V-Day Legal Notice of 9th October 2020, and laid on the table of the House on 15th October 2020, being within the requisite statutory timelines under Section 11(1) of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013. The regulation-making authority demonstrated that public participation was adequately undertaken by submitting copies of evidence of stakeholder forums held in the development of the regulations. The Kenya Revenue Authority sought views from the public and stakeholders through a public notice dated Friday, 29th May 2020. The authority received feedback from the stakeholders who were in support of the proposed regulations with few amendments. Taking into consideration the advances in technology, the stakeholders' recommended view of some aspects of the regulations were incorporated in the final draft. The regulations do not require a regulatory impact statement within the meaning of Sections 6 and 7 and 8 of the Statutory Instruments Act, as they are not likely to impose significant costs on the community and will only affect persons registered under Section 32 of the Value-Added Tax Act. Having examined the value-added tax regulations against the Constitution, the Interpretations and General Provisions of the Value-Added Tax Act and the Statutory Instruments Act, the committee recommends that the House approves the said statutory instruments in accordance with Section 67 of the Value-Added Tax Act, number 35 of 2013. Honourable Speaker, I beg to move and request Honourable Oundo, member of the Committee of Delegated Legislation, to second the report.
Very well, Honourable Oundo for seconding.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm a member of the committee and I stand to support VAT, Electronic Tax Invoice Regulation 2020, published as Legal Notice 189 of 2020. Honourable Speaker, in the endeavor of Kenya improving on the ease of doing business ranking in the world, there has been need to continuously review the process and procedures involved in invoicing and collection of taxes. Honourable Speaker, all along, there was a regulation in 2004 in respect of electronic tax invoice. But due to the challenges, the same was abolished, and that's why, Honourable Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Treasury has gazetted the VAT electronic tax invoice. Honourable Speaker, in reviewing these particular regulations, the Certain Instrument Act literally limits the mandate of the committee to various issues. Number one, to confirm whether there was public participation. Secondly, to confirm whether the there was a regulatory impact statement. And Honourable Speaker, as part of the team, we confirmed there was adequate public participation in view of the nature and type of regulations at hand. Honourable Speaker, the main purpose of these regulations is to standardize the generation of tax invoices so that wherever you go, wherever you are, it is standardized and is of the same style and nature. It is envisaged that this process will ensure tax compliance and enforcement of defaulters and fraud. So with those few remarks, Honourable Speaker, I beg to support.
You beg to second, very well. Our members, I propose the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the value-added tax, that is electronic tax invoice, regulations 2020, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 16, 2021, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 6 and 67 of the Value-Added Tax Act 2013, approves the value-added tax, that is electronic tax invoice, regulations 2020, published as legal notice number 189 of 2020. Leader of Majority, are you okay? Chair Finance, yeah, it's important sometimes we make a statement. Chair Finance. Very well.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, in this season when our revenues are depressed, it is important that we standardize and align all our revenue collection measures and systems so that we're able to optimize the revenue that we collect. We seal any loopholes for revenue leakages, Madam Speaker, and we are able to deal with fraud. So, Madam Speaker, digitization not only increases efficiency in revenue collection, but it also deals with the issue of fraud. So, Madam Speaker, as we spoke about in the earlier regulations that we have just spoken to, this is meant to standardize, streamline operations of revenue collection, particularly the value-added tax, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, anything that goes towards improving efficiency and optimizing revenue, as a finance committee, we can only say thumbs up and well done. And we must continue as much as possible to align all our systems towards an optimized revenue collection. So, Honourable Speaker, I support.
I have 6 requests. I don't know whether you want to speak to the other motion. But you cannot shout from where you sit. I don't remember. You're shouting, put the question. Of course, if you leave, it was the mood. Honorable Leader of Majority, you know. Those are shouting the mover to the... Yes, Honorable Member for... Honorable Member for...
Tharaka.
Tharaka, Honorable Murungara Gitonga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaker, judging from the mood of the House and having heard from the Chair of Finance, I stand under standing order number 95 and call upon the mover to reply.
Very well. You're quite in order. That understanding order number 95. For the mover to reply. And remember, will as many as of the opinion say aye? And as many as are contribute say nay? There is it. Mover.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to take the opportunity to thank, first and foremost, the committee members of the Committee on Delegated Legislation for their tireless and unending energy in the work that they do. I do also want to thank this House incredibly for the comments and the advice that has been given to us, to the Committee on Delegated Legislation. We recognize and appreciate the comments made, and we understand the difficulties that come with the burdens of paying taxes, but these are really the regulations to ensure that these taxes are collected effectively, and we must appreciate and understand that really taxes are really the bloodline for any government, whichever government that is around the world. With those few remarks, I move to reply.
Very well. With that, members, I do order that the question to motion number 10 on consideration of the value-added tax, electronic tax invoice regulations 2020 be deferred. That is the putting of the question. Next order.
Order number 11, motion. Consideration of the value-added tax, digital marketplace supply regulations 2020.
Let us have the chairperson, Committee on Delegated Legislation, to move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am not the chair, but I was mandated by the committee to Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the value-added tax, digital marketplace supply regulations 2020, read on Tuesday, February 16, 2021, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 6 and 67 of the Value-Added Tax Act 2013, approves the value-added tax digital marketplace supply regulation 2020, published as legal notice number 190 of 2020. Madam Speaker, we all know that this committee is established under standing order number 210, and its main mandate is to consider statutory instruments submitted to Parliament for consideration. Madam Speaker, in excess of the powers conferred under Section 67 of the Value-Added Act 2013, the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Planning made the value-added tax electronic tax invoice regulation 2020 via legal notice number 190 of 2020 on 25th September 2020. Madam Speaker, these regulations were submitted to the Clerk of the National Assembly on 9th October 2020 and tabled before the House on 15th October 2020. Basically, Madam Speaker, the object and purpose of these regulations is to provide a legal framework to govern the use of electronic tax registers in accordance with Section 43, subsection 4 of the Value-Added Tax Act number 23 of 2013 in order to provide for the interpretation, scope of application, use of the register, tax invoices, and transmissions thereof. obligations of the user and create offenses for non-compliance and contravention. Further, Madam Speaker, these regulations also seek to enforce the VAT compliance and minimize fraud and tax evasion by obligating a registered user under Section 34 of the VAT Act to generate a tax invoice. Further, the use of tax register by registered person will provide for standardization and uniformity of tax invoices generated and enhance effective compliance and enforcement measures by minimizing VAT fraud. The use of electronic tax registers will also ensure enhanced administration of the VAT. The legal basis, Madam Speaker, for the scrutiny is that it is basically against the Constitution, the Interpretation and General Provisions Act, the Value Added Act, and the Statutory Instrument Act number 23 of 2013. The scrutiny was undertaken following the tabling of regulations before the House on 15th October 2020 and subsequent referral to the Committee on Delegated Legislation. Madam Speaker, in accordance with the Section 16 of the Statutory Instrument Act 2013, the committee held a meeting with the Regulation-Making Authority on 1st February 2021. The delegation was led by the CS Treasury and Planning. Madam Speaker, the committee observed that the value-added tax, electronic tax invoices are against the Constitution, the Interpretation and the General Provisions Act, the Value Added Act, and the Statutory Instrument Act. The committee made the following observation. First.
Order. Mr. Wabugu Munene.
Yes, please.
Honorable. Are you moving motion number 11, consideration of the Value Added Tax Digital Marketplace Supply Regulations 2020?
Yes.
About
Yes.
the tax?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because the whole value added tax.
The three of them were actually interrelated.
Yes, yes. Carry on.
Yeah, you may not even tell the difference sometimes. Madam Speaker, I beg to go on. The value, we looked at the statutory timelines under Section 11 of the Statutory Instrument Act. And the committee was convinced that the regulations were submitted within the requisite statutory timelines under Section 11(1) of the Statutory Instrument Act. Madam Speaker, we also looked into...
Just give 1 or 2 more minutes just to clear. Yes.
Madam Speaker, and the committee was convinced beyond reasonable doubt that adequate public participation was undertaken under Section 5 of the Statutory Instrument Act. We also considered that the regulations do not require a regulatory impact statement within the meaning of Section 6, 7, and 8 of the Statutory Instrument Act, as they are not likely to impose significant cost on the community and will only affect persons registered under Section 34 of the Value Added Tax, number 35 of 2013. Having considered all that, Madam Speaker, the committee recommends that the House approve the said Statutory Instrument Act in accordance, the said Statutory Instrument in accordance with Section 67 of the Value Added Tax Act, number 35 of 2013. And, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move and request Honorable Geshimo Githinji, who is a member of the committee, to second the report.
Very well. Honorable Issue for seconding.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to second. And Madam Speaker, this committee is limited mainly on matters procedure. The matters substance have already been left to the Cabinet Secretary under Section 67 of the Parent Act. And Madam Speaker, one of the issues or the areas that this committee must interrogate is the timelines. Madam Speaker, I must also thank the clerk for timely transmission of regulations into this House to enable this committee to be able to transact business and within the requisite timelines. Madam Speaker, having established that, the other constitutional and statutory requirement of public participation comes into play. And Madam Speaker, once that has already been established, as the committee did, then the issue of regulatory impact comes into place. And in this case, Madam Speaker, it's more of a matter of Madam Speaker.
Honorable Sankok, and make sure, I know you call in. What is out of order? Just give me the mic. You cite what is out of order or was in order? You want to?
Honorable Speaker, I'm standing on a point of order because we are not yet out of the wood of COVID-19. But I see honorable members who are comfortably sitting close to each other, even without mask, Honorable Speaker. They are putting their mask as chin guards, Honorable Speaker. And you know, Honorable Speaker, sometimes it's very painful to see somebody who is not wearing a mask and you have your debt.
Can you cite the member?
Yeah?
Can you cite the member?
Somebody, the member?
Yes.
Honorable Speaker, you know, when somebody owes you, it is very painful to see them not wearing a mask. I'm not saying you owe me money, but put on the mask.
No, you can't. Very well. You know, I saw the leader of majority. In fact, I'm just in the member. The honorable member, please protect the other members. And if I were you, and you can see the surgery at arms, because this is a resolution that we made in the House, if I were you, when the member rose on the point of order and stated about wearing the mask, you would have done it with immediate effect. So please, honorable members, it's not a joke. Let us do the necessary. It is really bad. Protect others if you don't want to protect yourself. 001, thank you. No, it was the member who was out of order. Carry on, Honorable.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thought the point of order was to in respect of my contribution, but I also find that probably it was misplaced because no one was pointed out to not having a mask. But Madam Speaker, let me proceed with my contribution. Madam Speaker, I was on the point of regulatory impact, and basically this is a procedural aspect of streamlining the issue of tax payment, and to enable or in order to have efficiency in taxes. And everyone is aware that we have a problem of tax collection in this country, and I believe with these regulations, the Cabinet Secretary who is mandated with these aspects and responsibility of tax collection will be able to achieve his targets and be able to take care of all the issues, including the kind of issues that we have been raising in this House of CDF and other aspects. Madam Speaker, without much ado, I beg to support.
Your second.
I beg to second.
Very well. Other members? Madam Speaker, I can give you time to receive your seat. Very well. Members, I propose the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the value-added tax, that is the Digital Marketplace Supply, Regulations 2020, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 16, 2021. And pursuant to the provisions of Sections 6 and 6.7 of the Value-Added Tax Act 2013 approves the value-added tax, that is the Digital Marketplace Supply Regulations 2020, published as legal notice number 190 of 2020. Leader Majority.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to start, I rise to support the approval by the House of these regulations and to register my thanks for the committee in looking at these regulations. And Madam Speaker, you will note that these regulations relate to VAT taxation on the digital marketplace. Members may remember, Honorable Speaker, that last year we did create a new taxation regime that now supplies within online shopping and all that will be taxable. And these regulations now come into play to ensure that we have a basis for taxing people operating within our space. And more importantly, to bring some harmony between local suppliers and people supplying from out there. With COVID, one of the things that happened is now most of the people are not going to physically to the shops. People are buying things online. And it's not quite clear how the tax, the VAT taxation is taking place. So these regulations now come in to help sort out especially for people who are outside the country, selling things into Kenya. They don't have a physical presence within Kenya, but Kenyans are purchasing their goods. So if you buy similar goods from a person who is resident in Kenya, there is a VAT being paid. But if you buy from Amazon, for example, yeah, you don't end up paying the VAT. And that brings some inequity in terms of the taxation regime. And one of the canons of a tax regime is it should be equitable. And also for purposes of making sure that our people are not disadvantaged by outsiders, including somebody in Uganda selling things to Kenya, or even in Tanzania or in the neighborhood selling things to Kenya, but then that VAT element lacking, it kills our competitiveness. So basically, this is what I see these regulations as doing, and the tax started in January, so they're actually long overdue, and the earlier we can pass them and approve them, the better, so that we can actually test and keep refining them as we. So it's a whole new regime that has not been tested before, but it's happening. It's a global thing that people have not realized with COVID, that it's open. Physical shops are closing, while the digital shops are expanding. And you'll note even, Honorable Speaker, that all the companies that have invested heavily on that global, the technology companies, and they are the only ones who have reported heavy profits across the world. Whereas the people who have been waiting for customers to actually get in are suffering huge losses. How I wish we could have digital travel. Then our own KQ perhaps would be in a better position. Unfortunately, we can't do that, except in the realm of the movies, to see places without necessarily having to travel. And hence, the Netflixes and all that of this world, they're really making a lot of money. And we need our share of the powder of fresh, as it were. So I just wanted to highlight that and really thank the committee for what they've done. And with those few words, I beg to support.
Member for Kadiani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, almost all acts of Parliament delegate some responsibility to the authorities to be able to do some legislation. And that is normal, because you cannot put everything in an act of Parliament. So some little leeway is given to cabinet secretaries to be able to do regulations, and then those regulations are the ones that come to the committee. Sometimes I ask myself, how was life before when this committee of delegated legislation was created? Because currently, any instrument must be brought to the House for scrutiny so that we ensure that it conforms to the law and is also constitutional. So basically, I just want to say that I support this motion. But, you know, when you're talking about taxation, Madam Speaker, a lot of people might be listening out there and thinking this parliament is now in the middle of the night coming up with the new taxation measures and all that. I just want to allay anyone's fears that we are not in any way creating any new regime of taxation. We are not increasing VAT. We are just basically just ensuring that the current situation that has been there is improved. The collection of taxation, ensuring that the people who are evading in their own sly ways to pay tax are now being brought under the bracket. So basically, no one needs to worry that we are discussing tax at night. And I've said this because I've even got some messages, you know. People are concerned. What is this about VAT? Because the current situation is that, honestly, Kenyans are really overburdened by tax. And so they think that maybe in the middle of the night, that is when members now sit and start crafting new tax regimes. So basically, I want to allay anyone's fears that we are not increasing any taxes. We are just streamlining the current situation and ensuring the collection is done in a better manner. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Chairperson, Finance.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I thank the Honorable Member for Kathiani for making that clarification, because we can very easily be accused of hiding here in the middle of the night to introduce new taxes. These were already dealt with in the Finance Act, and therefore we are just putting in place a framework within which they can be implemented. So it is not introducing anything new, Honorable Speaker, without the requisite public participation. But Honorable Speaker, as the majority leader has correctly put it, the digital marketplace is growing. More and more people are selling, including on Facebook, for example, or other online platforms. In fact, Honorable Speaker, during COVID, people closed all their shops, but they have not reopened them because some people, you know, fear all the licenses and all the other requirements. So they have gone online. But more importantly, this is not so much to focus on our own young people who are, you know, doing their innovation and so on, but to be able to keep off big firms, you know, who are selling to us here and they're paying absolutely no taxes. You cannot compete if your own products are being levied VAT, but somebody is selling online and, you know, you can't quite place them anywhere, and you go ahead and they go ahead and sell at much lower rates. The competition is unfair. So, Honorable Speaker, this is not to disadvantage young Kenyans or any Kenyans, but to fend off that unfair competition and to have in place a framework. There's a lot of conversation right now around the whole issue of the digital space. There's conversations around regulation, for example, of digital lenders. You know, the people who are lending money, branch, you know, whether they're Tala, whether they're all these people, how do we regulate them and ensure that we also capture them? So there's a big conversation around the digital marketplace. This is not the end of it. We will continue to have it until a point, because it's also a very dynamic space. So the other thing, even as we pass these regulations, KRA must be aware that we are dealing with a very dynamic space. So we must have measures in place for surveillance. How are we going to catch these people in the digital space? How are we going to monitor? How are we going to monitor new entrants? How are we going to monitor the transactions? So we must be as vigilant as possible, but also as dynamic as possible. This is not the kind of thing that we review after 5 years or after 3 years. By December this year, it will completely be taking a new shape and form with innovation. So the other care we must take is that even as we regulate and even as we impose taxes, we must take care that we do not kill innovation and discourage people who want to innovate and grow innovation. Because a lot of young Kenyans are in this space, they are innovating, so we must strike the delicate balance between levying these taxes, getting revenue, fending off unfair competition, but also not stifling innovation so that people feel they cannot innovate from here because of an unfair tax regime. So, Honorable Speaker, with those few remarks, I beg to support.
Very well. The member for Ngatanga, Honorable Gidwati, you want to speak, please?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance also to make my contribution. And from the onset, I want to say I support the value-added tax, digital marketplace supply regulations, and the other regulations to do with the electronic tax invoice. These have come at the right time to support our business. And Madam Speaker, I wanted to say government has been losing a lot of money, especially when we are using ETR receipts. Fake receipts used to be printed in River Road to offset input tax. And the government used to lose a lot of money. So I support any amendment which will ensure that we collect more tax. But however, Madam Speaker, I wanted to say the greatest culprit in all this is the government, especially when it comes to paying contractors and suppliers. Because when you invoice, KRA demands that on invoicing you have to pay VAT. You invoice the government, they don't pay you. You incur penalties, those penalties are not captured anywhere within the contract. This is something which we need, as we make these regulations, we also need to review and to find a way how government is also going to support business. Sometimes, Madam Speaker, you'll find that the government will pay the principal amount. Then they fail to pay VAT. Then we suffer as business people. The other problem, Madam Speaker, is this house has been used before to reduce the budget for development. We come here, we reduce the budget, not knowing that some of the businessmen have incurred a lot of cost. They have invoiced, they have not been paid, and we sit here and deduct. I was thinking, Madam Speaker, before we do that, we need to consider our businessmen and to support them. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, as we support government, they should also be able to support our businessmen. And with those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, because a lot has been said, I want to say thank you very much for giving me that chance to contribute.
Honorable Sankok. Ole.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And I rise to support this very important bill, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, because the digital market, as have been rightly put by Honorable Gladys Wanga, is a growing market and is innovation. It is a market that can mutate within months, Honorable Speaker. So as we put in place this regulation, we should also be aware that they keep on changing. And what we are regulating now may not apply to the digital platform that will be there in the near future, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, and there have been a lot of unfair competition from our shopkeepers, from our people who have physical space, Honorable Speaker, selling their merchandise, Honorable Speaker. You find that they pay cumulatively taxes amounting to almost 30% of what they are selling, Honorable Speaker. Because they pay VAT, almost 16%, they also have to pay for licenses, money for county council licenses, Honorable Speaker, county governments. So you find that cumulatively it would be like 30%. So you can imagine somebody from abroad or from outside this country selling in the digital platform a commodity costing 1 million Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, for that particular person who have a physical space, they have to add almost 30% taxes, meaning 1.3 million For them to make any profit, they must sell at 1.4 there above. But for that person who does not pay taxes, they can pay that particular commodity at 1.1 million and still make 100,000 profit because they did not pay any tax. So it is a totally unfair competition. As we support this digital marketing strategy, Honorable Speaker, because it assists all of us. We can do shopping at the comfort of our homes, but still the government must make money. And we are not against our youth who are innovative. We are protecting them from international digital suppliers who may not be paying taxes, so they will not assist us in improving our infrastructure. What they earn a lot of money that will develop other countries outside our own region, Honorable Speaker. So that is why we are saying that they should also be paying taxes to be able to assist the government also to implement some of social amenities that we require. Honorable Speaker, the digital market supply, Honorable Speaker, is very important, especially for us persons with disability. Our movement is not up to standard. We are very slow in moving. Sometimes it is very expensive for a person with disability to move from point A to B, even if it is 500 meters. Because if you have a wheelchair with the terrain that we have, Honorable Speaker, even taking your merchandise to the market is really very costly because you have to pay for somebody to carry those merchandise, while my brother, Honorable Kizito, can carry on his back. Personally, I don't have that ability, physical strength to carry. So I have to employ somebody to carry. Some of us, when we move to go to the market, those on wheelchairs will have to pay for the wheelchair, fare for the wheelchair, pay fare for themselves, and pay fare for those who will go and push them, Honorable Speaker. So we find that it is very expensive, and this one have solved most of our problem because we can be business people in the comfort of our homes, sell our merchandise digitally without necessarily moving from point A to B, or even buy digitally without moving from point A to B, because our movement is not that fast and is not that efficient. So, Honorable Speaker, we need to have this regulation so that we can earn taxes, but we also need to have some regulation to support this innovation so that we can move together with the whole world, because the world has become a global village. With those very many remarks, I do support.
The member for Madogo, Honorable Oscar Nambolindo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, sir. Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me take this opportunity to thank you very much, Madam Speaker, because this is my maiden speech. I would like to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank the Almighty God for enabling me to be here in this honorable house. Secondly, I'll take this opportunity to sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, to thank the people of Matungu for having faith in me and for voting for me overwhelmingly to come to represent them here. Madam Speaker, I also take this opportunity to thank my party, Amani National Congress, and the party leader, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, for having supported me wholeheartedly through the campaign period and up to today. I also take this opportunity to thank all friends, colleagues, and well-wishers who supported me in terms of very many things, emotionally, physically, psychologically, and financially. I also take the time, this time, to thank leaders across the country, especially the leader of Ford Kenya, Honorable Senator Wetangula, the leader of KANU, Senator Moi, and the leader of Wiper Party, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka. I'll not finish before I thank my colleagues, staff of Parliament. I'm calling them my colleagues because I worked in Parliament here since 2001 up to 2017 when I resigned to go into politics. So my colleagues actually supported me strongly, and I received their message as I was campaigning, message of goodwill. I thank them very much. Madam Speaker, the people of Matungu and Matungu constituency, it's a unique constituency because this is a constituency with very many problems, more problems than I think other constituencies in Kenya, because almost 90% of the entire population of Matungu live in abject poverty. That's a reality that we live with, and it's a concern for us as leaders of that region. The reason why many residents of Matungu have sunk into poverty is because their income, their source of income, the only source of income they had for years collapsed with their dreams. And that is Mumias Sugar Company. The collapse of Mumias Sugar Company brought many dreams to a halt. The entire population of Matungu used to depend on Mumias Sugar Company for their livelihoods. The entire population either used to benefit directly or indirectly from Mumias Sugar Company. So you can imagine the collapse of the company has led into unforeseen and numerous problems in the constituency. And that problem has affected almost all sectors of the human living in Matungu. First, in terms of education, education in Matungu has remained behind than other regions of the country because very many parents can't afford to take their children to school anymore, because parents used to depend on their only cash crop, that's sugarcane farming, to take their children to school and to fulfill other family needs. But unfortunately, that's no longer available. Therefore, Matungu witnesses a lot of school dropouts. We have very many school dropouts in Matungu, and especially the girl child. It's a situation whereby very many parents who are poor are presented with a situation whereby do they educate the boy or the girl? And obviously the vote goes to the boy. And so most girls don't get the opportunity to go to school. And that's why we get very many dropouts, early pregnancies, early marriages. This is something that goes on in Matungu unabated. Therefore, poverty eradication mechanisms need to be put in place through women empowerment, youth empowerment, so that we can create incomes for the general population, for them to be able to sustain their lives. In terms of health, Matungu, we have one hospital called Matungu District Hospital. As you all know, this Matungu District Hospital is one of the most ill-equipped hospitals in the country, to an extent that the by-election that happened in Matungu happened because of this hospital. The member of parliament who passed away, the Honorable Justice Murunga, he lives 2 kilometers away from this hospital. And when he collapsed and was taken to Matungu District Hospital, there was no oxygen to save his life. He lost his life because the hospital is ill-equipped, as simple as that. By the time they rushed him from Matungu to Mumias, which is 5 kilometers away, he was already dead. Madam Speaker, I can see the red light, but I thought could give me more time, since it's my maiden speech. Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, therefore, Matungu District Hospital, does not have ventilators. Matungu District Hospital does not have oxygen. It does not have ICU facility. It does not have medicines. It has about only 2 or 3 doctors instead of 20. It has 10 nurses instead of 100. So it is one of the most ill-equipped hospitals. And I urge fellow leaders, the county government of Kakamega, to speed up the equipping of the hospital of Matungu. Otherwise, if a member of parliament can actually die, what about an ordinary mwananchi who uses that facility on a daily basis? Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, sorry. I would have said more about Matungu. Thank you very much, Honorable Member. But due to time, I limit myself. But before I limit myself, I would like first to say that today I'm a very sad person because a friend of mine, my chief campaigner, my friend Senator Cleophas Malala, lost his seat because of me. He lost his seat because he stood with me, he stood with his party ANC. And he was sacrificed because of that stand. It's very unfortunate that our big brother is very intolerant. Actually, it's a shame, because I thought politics of Matungu should have remained in Matungu. But the vengeance that is being carried up to the national level is not acceptable. Therefore, Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I wish to end my short speech about Matungu. And I still thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. And regarding today's motion about the digitization of the taxation measures, I support. Thank you very much.
You support. Very well. You know, in maiden speech, we don't interrupt. Yeah, though I'm sure now in the next, I'm sure you have the standing orders of relevance, accuracy. But welcome to the National Assembly. This is staff. Now you are a member of Parliament, honorable member. Let me have the member for Kitui Rulo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to speak about this motion on digital market supply regulations. Madam Speaker, we are all aware that most of the big digital suppliers, actually Amazon, Alibaba, they operate from this country, outside this country. And these companies don't pay VAT, they don't pay corporate tax. Now this one brings unfairness to the local farms because most of the Kenyans will buy from there, and these companies, they don't pay tax to this country. Madam Speaker, as we speak, tax revenue as a percentage of GDP has gone down from 25% in 2013 to around 13% currently.
The new member now, because you've made your speech.
And this one has resorted to...
Honorable Molika, when the speaker is speaking, you do not...
Oh, okay.
Yes, I was addressing the new member, the member for Matungu. We don't cross the... But I'm sure you'll be... Now that you made your maiden speech, congratulations, we don't cross the... very well, and thank you. Yes, Honorable Molika?
Yes, I was saying that, Madam Speaker, we are seeing tax revenue as a percentage of GDP going down from 25% in 2013 to 17% currently. And this one has resulted to high budget deficit, high borrowing, high debt servicing, and slow economic growth. And the low tax revenue could have been resorted due to taking long as a country to adopt some of these reforms. So these regulations are very ideal to enhance tax revenue in the country. But again, we need to think about KRA and its funding. To me, KRA is unfunded. We need to avail more funds to KRA so that they can enhance and reform their ICT system so that they can be able to collect more, hire more staff, and also train the staff in tax collection. So with those few remarks, I support. Thank you very much.
Very well, the member for Kitui. And the member for Funyula.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'll be very brief. I'm a member of the committee and associate myself with the comments made by the mover and the proposer. Suffice to note that, Honorable Speaker, I just wanted to make one clarification so that it's very clear. Honorable Speaker, over the time, as my colleagues have continuously said, we have developed a system of selling or buying items online. While the already tax regimes, systems to tax those locally sellers or players in the digital market, we have lacked a mechanism to tax the internationals and those who have got no physical address in this country. So therefore, the value-added digital marketplace supply regulations 2020 is basically to rope in these international players who have had no remedy or no way to include them in the tax bracket. However, Honorable Speaker, I need to make a very clear clarification. With COVID-19, there has been a proliferation of online learning, online digital material. Honorable Speaker, I need to be very clear that when KRA and the various stakeholders appeared before us, they gave an assurance that educational materials for educational courses approved in this country are exempt from this type of VAT. So I just wanted to go that on record. However, Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, we have very many mechanisms to collect tax. The challenge remains and will continuously remain on the capacity of Kenya Revenue Authority to register and collect taxes. We have no shortage of tax laws. We have no shortage of tax regime. What we have is lack of ability of Kenya Revenue Authority to collect tax. Honorable Speaker, this is a tax system that has got a lot of potential. The young people, international players will continuously innovate. We pray and hope KRA and the National Treasury will put into place mechanisms to track the innovations, to track the changes, so that at no single time we lose this revenue, especially from those who have no physical place in this country. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to support.
Then the last member has requested to speak to the motion number 11. Is a member for Masinga. The other members indicated they want to speak to the next. Yes, member for Masinga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to air my views on this digital marketplace value-added tax. Value-added tax is an instrument that helps the government to collect funds, and it has been not very efficient, because you find that there are some that are not even remitted because they have not been handed in the high tax. And therefore, the digital addition will be able to loop in the people that have been evading taxes, because there are so many. You find that some of the importers, especially the international ones, do not have even the high tax systems. They are not included. And they sell through the online. You pay them through your M-Pesa, and they deliver to your doorstep. And therefore, we have been losing in this country, and that's why we have no cash flow, because so many people are trading and they cannot be able to pay the taxes through the right channel. Again, that the local mwananchi, especially the contractors and the importers, they pay taxes on the entry and they pay the VAT, and even when they invoice again with VAT. That is, they end up paying a double VAT, which they don't recover. And especially when you ask for your refund, it takes a year, even takes 8 months, 10 months, and you are unable to have some cash flow because you have already spent the money on the KRA. So this will help us so that we can be having a level playing ground, that all of us pays taxes and be able to compete in the marketplace. So I support this motion, and I say that the government should extend to be able to implement it so that we can get the revenue for all the things that are imported in this country, and therefore I support.
Very well. The member for Mwingi, you indicated you wanted to speak to motion number 11 or 12? Member for Mwingi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I had indicated that I really wanted to speak to the motion number 12 that concerns my committee on, but now that you have given me this opportunity, I just want to concur with the rest of the speakers that indeed this is a timely kind of a regulation that is going to improve on tax collection and also help those people that are involved in the digital purchasing and supplying to be able to contribute to paying taxes so that we can improve our revenue collection. I know some small business people may feel a little bit treated unfairly because they have been surviving on not paying taxes. But then with the kind of economy that we have today and the cash flow problems that we have in this country, every sector of this country or of business must be able to pay taxes so that we can pay for the development of this country. With those few remarks, I beg to support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well. Members, there have been no other requests. Then I call upon the mover to reply. Honorable Abugo Monene.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think I would want first of all to sincerely thank all the members, honorable members, who have contributed for their good comments and essentially for unanimously supporting this motion. And generally, these regulations, as it has been designed, or it can be designed from the moving notes and also from the support which was given or the contribution, they are made generally to provide a legal framework to govern the use of electronic tax registers and basically seek to enforce the VAT compliance, minimize fraud and tax evasion, and generally enhance the administration of the VAT. I also want to also sincerely thank the member of the delegated committee for, as usual, coming with solid reports, which has always been inviting support. I think the committee has never lost an emotion, and it shows that it takes its work very seriously, just like all committees of this honorable House. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I beg to reply.
Again, the motion having been moved, seconded, proposed, debated, I am not in a position to put the question, and I do order that the question to motion number 11, that is on the consideration of the value-added tax, digital play supply regulations 2020, be deferred. Next order.
Order number 12, motion, formulation of parliamentary broadcasting channels.
Chairperson, Committee on Parliamentary Broadcasting and Library.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I would like to seek for indulgence on that because of the gravity and the nature of the motion I intend to move in the House. I wanted to request if we can give it really, because I think the members will have a lot of interest in this, and wanted to request if we could maybe push it, if that can be okay, Madam Speaker.
Very well. Honorable Justice Kizito is requesting that we defer the motion number 12, and the reasons are convincing. Feels that his reports, that is a formulation parliamentary broadcasting channel, thinks it needed more time and due to the weight of the motion. So I I grant you, and I rule that motion number 12 be deferred. Also, I'm sure given the time. Next order is next order.
Order number 13, motion, inspection visits to ascertain the impact of revenue enhancement initiatives on revenue collection.
The chairperson, Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity to move the report of the Committee on Finance and National Planning on inspection visits to various KRA sites to check on the efficiency of the revenue enhancement initiatives that have been put in place over the years and whether they have actually resulted in...
Honorable Wanka, are you moving or you are explaining?
Honorable Speaker, it was my understanding that I have been called upon to move.
Yes.
So I should proceed and say, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the report of the Committee on Finance and National Planning.
And you know very well that we move the reports by exactly reading or stating what the report, that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee.
I beg your indulgence, Honorable.
You move the motion as it is in the order paper first.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Honorable Speaker. I am well guided.
And then you also confirm the 2 minutes that I have is enough for you to move.
So, Honorable Speaker, maybe I can, because of the time limitation, I can request your indulgence that we begin it afresh in the new session.
So you are requesting because of the gravity or because we defer?
Yeah, that we defer to the new. I wanted to start it so that next time I'm on the priority list, but because the time is much gone, let me request that we defer it.
Very well. That Honorable Wanka, the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, given the time that we have 1 minute, it's requested that we do defer the moving of the inspection visits to ascertain the impact on revenue enhancement initiatives on revenue collection. And I do order, also with an understanding of the time, that the same be deferred.
Much obliged, Honorable Speaker.
Now, members, given the time, the members, the time being 9 p.m., this House stands adjourned until the Tuesday, 30th of March, 2021 at 2:30 p.m. So ordered. Thank you.